I'm Deputy Duncan with the St. Louis County Sheriff's Department. I'm a firearms instructor. This video is to be viewed by Sheriff's Department personnel prior to attending firearms range for either training or for qualification. While on the range, our priority is going to be safety. We want everybody to go home in the same condition that they arrived. We don't want any injuries of any kind out there. Along those lines, treat every firearm as if it's loaded. Do not point a firearm at anything you do not wish to destroy, and be sure of what your target is and what is behind it. Keep your finger off the trigger until on target and ready to fire. This is especially important while drawing the pistol or while holstering. If you are holstering a pistol and your finger is on the trigger, while you're pushing the pistol down into the holster may put pressure on your finger, which is going to put pressure on the trigger, which is going to cause the firearm to fire. Likewise, if you're holstering the pistol, we all carry concealed on the department. If you're wearing a sweatshirt with a string attached to it or a long shirt tail, if it gets caught in the trigger guard as you're pushing the pistol down into the holster, that could put pressure on the trigger, which again could cause the firearm to fire. Even more likely is if that gets caught and you want to clear it, you start jerking on the shirt tail or the sweatshirt or string or whatever that's caught in there. That's going to pull the trigger, that's going to cause the firearm to fire, and it's going to put a bullet where nobody wants the bullet to go. If that happens, if you get something caught in the trigger guard, make sure you unholster, clear the obstruction, and reholster the firearm before continuing. Be aware of your muzzle direction at all times. This is particularly important while doing a reload. Make sure when you're reloading the pistol, you keep the firearm pointed downrange as you insert a fresh magazine and continue. What you do not want to do, you don't want to turn the pistol to the side and point it to the person in the lane next to you. So be aware of your muzzle direction at all times. If we are using a range that has a table or a shelf in front of the shooter, be aware of that as you draw and as you holster. Make sure that as you draw the pistol, you don't catch the muzzle of the pistol on the edge of that shelf or table, causing you to possibly drop the pistol or grab it, grabbing the trigger and firing a shot. Eye and ear protection are a required role on the range. Deputies are expected to bring their own eye protection and ear protection, along with a cap with a bill on it. If it's a ball cap or some other type of cap has a bill on it, you're to bring that to the range. The reason for having a cap with a bill: shooting semi-automatic pistol, occasionally it'll shoot an empty shell casing straight up. You don't want it to come down in between your glasses and your eye. Having a cap with a bill will prevent that. Deputies using semi-automatic pistols are required to bring at least 2 magazines with them for the qualification course. All right, because the Sheriff's Department allows personnel to choose the pistol they carry on duty, there's a wide variety of pistols being used. Each deputy is expected to be fully familiar with their firearm, all functions and controls prior to arriving at the range. If you have any questions about your firearm, the controls or the function, check your owner's manual. If you don't have an owner's manual, check with your firearms instructor or some firearms instructor familiar with that firearm to advise you of the proper use of the controls for that particular pistol. If you're using a new to you firearm, make sure that that firearm is on file with the Sheriff's Department. Make sure we have that prior to you qualifying, prior to your range date. While on the range, it is considered a hot range. That means firearms will be carried loaded and holstered. Anytime you run the firearm empty or dry, if you have a loaded magazine, immediately go ahead and reload. After you reload, come back up on your target or your threat. Check right, check left for further threats. Check your threat again before coming back, putting the safety on, or decocking and holstering. If you have a firearm malfunction during the course of fire, if you are comfortable doing so, immediately go ahead and perform a clearance drill and continue with the course of fire. If you are unable to clear that jam, or you are uncomfortable doing so, make sure you keep the firearm pointed downrange in a safe direction, raise your hand, and an instructor will assist you in clearing that. You will then be allowed to continue and finish the course of firearm. Basic clearance drills for a semi-automatic are tap, crack, and re-engage. What that means, hit the bottom of the magazine, make sure it's fully seated. Rack the slide to empty any round that may still be stuck in the chamber, or to allow any empty shell casing that's jammed in there to fall free. And then re-engage your target. If you need to continue shooting, you continue shooting. If you're finished, just make sure your threat is no longer a threat. Check right, check left for further threats, check the initial threat, and come back, decock, or put the safety on and holster. It assists as you're clearing that pistol. After the tap, as you rack it, turn the pistol slightly to the side. As you rack the slide, that will assist any loose shell to fall free to allow you to continue. A firm grip on the pistol with an unyielding wrist as you're shooting helps the pistol function properly and helps it avoid any stovepipe type jams. All right. To review the grip for pistol or semi-automatic, you want your hand high up on the grip. There's normally a little shelf or thing on a semi-automatic. Get your strong hand up against that. Wrap your hand around it. Nice firm grip as you fire. Okay, now when you're shooting one-handed, the question is, where's your support hand? Out on the street, it's possible that you're holding on to something. You may be pushing somebody out of the way, may be injured for whatever reason. On the range, and for practice, just put your support hand across your chest as you fire one-handed unsupported. Two-hand grip is essentially the same thing as one. You start out with a nice high grip on the pistol, wrap your hand around it, you take your support hand, and then you wrap it around the pistol. The other side, basically make a big two-fisted grip around the pistol grip as you aim and fire at your target. You do not want to grab your wrist as you shoot. That doesn't provide much support at all. Likewise, what they call a teacup, if you just take one hand, set the pistol on top of that hand, there's very little support for follow-up shots. As you fire a shot, the pistol's going to come up off of that support hand, and you're going to have to readjust after every shot. It does not provide a lot of support for follow-up shots. Okay, for stance, for one hand, get your good solid grip. I recommend you put your support side, or your strong side, your gun side, foot slightly forward as you punch your firearm out towards the target to fire. Push your arm straight out towards the target. This is much more comfortable if you stand straight on the target when you're shooting one-handed. It's just an uncomfortable way to fire. The more comfortable you are when you're shooting, the more accurate you're going to be, the easier it is to shoot accurately and provide any follow-up shots that may be necessary. Two-hand grip, or two-hand stance, there's basically two main stances there. There's the isosceles and there's a weaver, or the modified weaver. The isosceles has you standing straight, facing straight towards your target. As you're facing straight towards your target, straight forward, you just push both hands straight forward, both arms straight out towards the target as you fire. This gives you good control for recovery from recoil. Also, for those people who wear vests, the theory is this puts your vest more directly towards the threat. The other is the weaver, or the modified weaver stance. With that, you put your support side leg slightly forward, maybe a 45-degree angle, your feet about shoulder width apart, As you punch out with your firearm hand, push that arm straight forward, you pull back slightly with your support hand. Gives you a good platform for controlling recoil and any follow-up shots that are necessary. I prefer the Weaver myself. I think it's more comfortable. For those of you that shoot rifles or shotguns, it's also a more natural position for you to be in. The only difference from shooting the Weaver, rifle, or shotgun is mainly hand position. But your legs and your body position is essentially the same. Also, for those that remember the days in the academy, the interview stance has you standing as you're talking to someone with your firearm side away from them. Real comfortable position, and you don't have to start jostling your feet around to get into the position to come up and fire if necessary. I don't care which of those two stances you use, whichever you're most comfortable with, whichever you shoot better with is fine by me. You want your front sight to be centered in the notch or V, whatever it happens to be, of the rear sight. You want the top of the front sight to be even with the top of the rear sight. Same amount of light on either side of that sight on your target. That's your sight alignment. Sight picture is the relationship of that sights to the target. You want those aligned sights where you want to hit your target. If you have the front sight post sitting high in that notch, you're going to shoot high. If you have it buried in the bottom of the notch, you're going to end up shooting low. Likewise, if you have the front sight post skewed to the right of the rear sight, you're going to pull your target to the right, or your shot to the right. Now, you can only focus on one thing at a time. You can't focus on your front sight and your rear sight and the target at the same time. You can only focus on one. What you need to focus on when shooting a pistol, you need to focus on the front sight. Front sight should be absolutely clear. That means your rear sight's going to be a little fuzzy and the target's going to be a little out of focus. But concentrate on that front sight. Next thing we need to consider is trigger control. You can't jerk a trigger and expect the shot to go where you want it to go. If you're aiming at the target and you anticipate the shot and you jerk it, you anticipate the recoil, you're going to pull the shot low. You want a nice smooth trigger pull so that the hammer just falls. When you put your finger on the trigger, you want to use generally either just the first pad or the first joint of your trigger finger to pull the trigger. That allows you to pull the trigger straight back. If you jam your finger all the way through the trigger guard and you try pulling the trigger, you're going to end up pulling the pistol slightly to the side as you pull the trigger, which is of course going to pull your shot to the side. If you try just using the very tip of your trigger finger to pull it, you will have a tendency to push the shot to the other side. So, front pad or front joint on the trigger and pull straight back, nice smooth trigger pull until the shot fires. Trigger pull on pistols are basically two trigger pulls. There's a double action trigger pull and a single action trigger pull. What double action means, when you pull the trigger, the hammer does two things. It comes back and then it goes forward. That's the two actions. Single action means the hammer's already cocked. When you pull the trigger, the hammer falls forward. That's the one action. Now I have different types of pistols out there. This happens to be what they call a double action, single action. It means the first shot you fire will be double action. The hammer comes back, falls forward. When the action cycles, it leaves the hammer back. Every subsequent shot will be single action. It'll fire, cycle, hammer back, and fire. Now the double action trigger pull is much longer and harder than the single action trigger pull. The single action trigger pull will be very short and very light. This happens to be a single action only pistol. Means the hammer has to be back for it to fire. The hammer's back, pull the trigger, and the hammer goes forward. It will cycle, and then every subsequent shot is single action. Now with the hammer down, I can pull the trigger as much as I want, and it won't do anything. The hammer has to be back for it to fire. These type single action semi-automatics will have a safety on them. Make sure before you holster, you put the safety on for holstering. This pistol has a decocking lever. It's a lever that you push down. It will drop the hammer safely before you holster. Some pistols, the Glocks, do not have either a manual safety or a decock lever. Just be aware of that. Revolvers, likewise, have neither a safety nor a decocking lever. Revolver, you pull the trigger, hammer comes back, hammer falls. If you want, you can cock the hammer, which makes it single action, which again is a very short trigger pull and a very light trigger pull. I recommend everybody here carry extra ammunition. If you are shooting a semi-automatic, you have to own at least 2 magazines to qualify. Make sure you carry that spare magazine with you. If you have 2 extra magazines, feel free to carry those, whether it's a 6 or 7 shot pistol, or if it's a 15 or 18 shot pistol. Having that extra ammunition may help you out. In a situation where things go that bad that you empty your pistol, you'll be glad you have extra ammunition. For those shooting a revolver, you can carry loose rounds. I recommend using a speed loader. A speed loader is simply a little top tool that holds your rounds. They are made specifically for the different model revolver that you have. If you've got a Smith & Wesson K frame, you'll want one size. If you're using a J frame or for a 5-shot, you'll need a different speed loader. So make sure you get the proper speed loader for your revolver. They're simple to use. After you empty the pistol or your revolver, the rounds just fit right there in the chambers of the cylinder. You push on the speed loader. Some of them have a knob that you twist, which releases the rounds. Let the speed loader drop to the ground, load, and you're ready to continue. If you have a speed loader, if you drop it on the ground, it's not going to dump the ammo all over the place. It's easy to carry in your pocket, and you can reload with a speed loader probably as fast as you can reload a semi-automatic. Those of you using a revolver, sometimes you may have occasion or need to load 1 or 2 single rounds for whatever reason. Maybe you drop the ammunition and you're carrying loose. You have to reload. You only have 1 or 2 rounds to reload. To make sure you load them in the proper chamber for the cylinder, there's a simple tool. If you don't know which way your cylinder revolves as you turn it or as it fires, you can look on the cylinder. There's a locking notch there. It looks almost like a little arrow. That arrow points the direction that cylinder will turn. What you will want to do is you will want to take that 1 round, load it in the chamber, and then put it just to the side of the barrel so that when the revolver fires, it will rotate that live round in front of the barrel and the hammer so that it will fire. That way you'll get it to go boom on the first shot instead of click, 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 boom. Smith & Wessons and Colt revolvers, the cylinders turn in different directions. Other manufacturers, I don't know what direction they turn, but a quick check of the locking notch will tell you which way that cylinder is going to turn. So if you only have 1 or 2 rounds you need to load, you can load them in the proper location as you close the cylinder to continue whatever fight you're in. Talked about firearm malfunctions a minute ago. One simple way to make sure you avoid malfunctions, make sure you keep your firearm clean and properly lubricated or oiled. If you've got a semi-automatic and you carry it year-round, it's going to get dusty. If you don't shoot it, if you don't clean it, it's going to get dirty. Gunk will build up in there. Could cause a malfunction. Last thing you want is a malfunction when your life is on the line. Just simple, take it out every month, run a patch through the barrel, clean it according to your manufacturer's suggestions there, and put it away. It takes 30 seconds. Simplest and easiest way to avoid a malfunction. For refresher course or just general firearms training, we don't score your targets. For qualification is a 70% score on the V27 target here. 70% is a 50-shot course of fire. Out of those 50 shots, you need to put 35 inside this 8-ring. 35 shots in the 8-ring is 70%. Anything outside the 8-ring off the target doesn't count. Okay, course of fire, we'll start at the 3-yard line. You'll load 2 magazines with 6 rounds each. We'll give them a command to fire. You will draw, you will fire 2 shots. Check right, check left, check your threat, decock or put the safety on, and holster. You're given a second command to fire. You'll draw, you'll come up, we'll fire 2 shots. You'll check left, check right, check your threat, decock, and holster. You'll be given one more command to fire. You will draw, you'll fire 2 shots. That should empty your pistol. As soon as it's empty, go ahead and reload. And drop that empty magazine. Put your fresh magazine in. Load. As soon as you do that, come back up on your target. Check your threat. Check right. Check left. Check your threat again. Put the safety on and holster. Just because your pistol runs dry out on the street doesn't mean the fight's over. Immediately get in the habit of reloading. Come back up, check your threat, check for other threats before you decock or put the safety on and holster. At that point, we will probably have you just draw your pistol, put it in your support hand, hold it at a low ready. Low ready doesn't mean you're pointing at the target. It doesn't mean you're pointing at your toes. Basically point at the bottom edge of the target. You will be given one command to fire using only your support hand. You will come up and you will fire all 6 shots. After you fire those 6, if you have another magazine with 6 rounds in it, go ahead, unload, reload, come back up on your threat, check right, check left, decock, and holster. Do not pick up your magazines that are on the ground until we're given the command that the line is safe. After everyone has completed that course, whatever course of fire, and holster their pistols, you'll be told the line is safe and you can go ahead and pick up your magazine. If anything falls in front of the line of fire, don't get it. Advise the range instructor and we will declare the line safe. At that time, you can go get whatever item fell in front of the line of fire. All right, after the 3-yard line, we'll move back to the 5-yard line. Same course of fire as the 3-yard line. You'll have 2 magazines with 6 rounds each. You'll be given a command to fire. With one hand, you will draw, come up, fire 2 shots, check right, check left, check your threat, decock, and holster. You're given that command 2 more times. Each time you'll fire 2 shots, decock, and holster. Once again, we will have you, after you've reloaded with a magazine with 6 rounds, have you draw, place it in your support hand, hold it down to the low ready. You'll be given one command to fire. On that command to fire, you'll come up on the target and you'll fire all 6 shots with only your support hand. Now, if you're wondering why we have you transfer to your support hand instead of just giving you the command to fire, we don't want anybody fumbling around trying to get in too much of a hurry, drawing, trying to put it in their support hand, possibly dropping it. So we'll just have you draw, take your time, put it in your support hand, and start from a low ready. Okay, after the 5-yard line, you'll move to the 7-yard line, or we'll move the target to the 7-yard line. You'll load 2 magazines with 7 rounds each. You'll have one in the pistol locked and loaded. You'll have one in your pocket or in a pouch on your belt. You'll be given one command to fire. At the 7-yard line, you use both hands. It also becomes much more important to pay attention to your sight alignment and your trigger pull. Use both hands as the 7-yard line, nice solid grip, good sight alignment, good trigger pull. You'll be given one command to fire. You will fire all 14 rounds, which of course means you'll have to draw, fire the 7, reload, fire the next 7. Obviously, those of you carrying a revolver will have to do a couple extra reloads. If you're using a 6-shot revolver, you have to reload a couple times. If you're using a 5-shot revolver, you're going to have to load fully almost 3 times. But that will be 14 shots. That will leave you with 12 shots out of the 50. We'll move the target to the 15-yard line. You'll have 2 magazines with 6 rounds each. Once again, you'll be given one command to fire. You will draw. Good two-handed grip. Good sight alignment. Nice, easy, smooth trigger pull. And you will fire all 12 rounds. At the 7 and especially the 15-yard line, if you start to anticipate the shot and you jerk the trigger, you're going to start pulling those shots off the target. So concentrate on the smooth trigger pull. After that, if it's just a refresher course or a training, regular training day, we'll bring the targets back up. You can take a look at it. You decide if you need to practice more or not. For qualification, leave the target there. An instructor will score the target and then let you know if you passed or if you have to reshoot. You're allowed 2 attempts to qualify on any qualification day. If you fail to qualify on both attempts, then we'll make some arrangements for additional training and give you another attempt to qualify at some later date.